got hit with one of the canisters they shot.
Yeah. Hey everyone, it's Crystal Martinez here. I just got off the phone with Sergeant Jean Page, who did confirm one minor injury. Said that the guy was trying to kick a gas canister and that he missed when he kicked it and he hit his head. But he's believed to be okay right now. Looking at the scene, of course, you can see that there are still protesters out here. Earlier, there was tear gas being deployed to disperse the crowds. From what I saw, oh, something was just thrown. Hold on. They're throwing water bottles. They're throwing water bottles at the police. They're throwing stuff. The crowd is throwing stuff at the police right now. And right before then, right before then, they were just holding signs on the other side. They kind of got closer and closer and closer. But you can see the police are at the bottom of the court steps right now. The crowd is starting to come back. I'm hearing the crowd tell other people in the crowd to stay peaceful, to stop throwing that. So you can see the crowd is still coming back again. Talking about how this happened, earlier when we first got here, everyone was just marching around the square. The police did block off the road so that they could march on the road. That happened a little bit after 8 p.m. And then we did see someone who was not a part of the original protest seem to kind of riled up the crowd a little bit with what they were saying. And then the crowd moved that person, and the situation moved to the end of the court steps. The bottom of the court steps here at the courthouse, and then that's when police came out in riot gear, formed a line at the bottom, and then from there we're giving verbal warnings for the crowd to disperse. Tear gas was deployed. As I said, it's been deployed a few times just to kind of get the crowd to disperse. But I do want to mention these people right here that you see in front of us kneeling, they've been here the whole entire time, just being on one knee, showing off their signs. There's been other people here on the side of us that have been helping others by giving out water, helping people out who did get hit with the tear gas. You can see them right now over there. It looks like everyone is kneeling. They have their fist in the air and they're saying, "Don't shoot." I'm staying quiet so you guys can hear. Again, they are all on their knees. All right, so someone is driving by with a truck with a Confederate flag. It's causing a little bit of disruption. All right, going back to the scene here now. I mean, it's almost silent now. You can see that they're kneeling. Some have their fist in the air, some have their hands in the air, some are still holding signs. Again, the police are at the bottom of the courthouse steps in riot gear. I believe some deputies are behind them as well. So they're kind of occupying the courthouse steps. That's where they're situated. And then across the street is where the protesters are. So I've been in communication with Sergeant Jean Page. Again, he did confirm that the tear gas has been deployed multiple times. He also said that there was some vehicle damage done. Now, I did not see that with my own eyes, so I can't tell you the extent of that damage. Jean Page also says he's going to wait until he sees it before he comments on that, but that 2 patrol vehicles did have some damage to them, and that happened on the north side of the square. Now, we've been close to the courthouse this entire time, and that's how we were able to see exactly what caused this disruption to even begin. I was right there on top of the bench there filming it, and I do have it on cell phone video, and I will post that later. But it just seemed like an uninvited guest was here, showed up, kind of got the crowd a little rifled up. When they moved to the bottom of the court steps, that's when police came out and then lined up the bottom. And then from there, it's just kind of been going back and forth. The crowd will get dispersed with the tear gas, and then they'll come back. I've heard some of them plead, just, we want to stay peaceful. We want to keep this peaceful. And that's kind of the scene what we're seeing right now here. This protest was set to start at 7:30. There were actually some people here before then, but I mean, between 7:30 and 9, we had people just walking around chanting. I mean, there was more than 100 people out here. Again, police did block off the street to allow them to protest in the street. That happened a little bit later, around like after 8 p.m. And then waiting to see what's happening here. Okay, it's getting a little tense. Some profanity. There is profanity being shouted. I just want to let you all know right now. I know we're streaming live. Hey, Bobbit, I'm on Facebook Live right now. You need to take me in the show, or? Okay, I'm just going to... Okay, I guess they can take us both from Facebook and the show. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Okay, for everyone watching on Facebook, we're about to go live for the newscast here.
Taking you back up?
Taking me back up, just for the last of the show. Yes.
Okay, we're leaving.
Who's leaving?
He said they're about to come up the stairs, so be ready for it.
These guys are saying the police are about to come off the steps.
Oh, okay.
Be ready, okay?
Okay.
If I say run, just run.
Yeah.
Be right back.
But I'd like to see him drive it, I won't, and I'll be gone.
They just grab the backpack and you can grab it.
Hello? I don't think I can hear, I can't quite hear anybody if you're talking to me, but if I am up and live right now, I'm going to give you one last look at the scene here outside of Bentonville Square in front of the courthouse. Yeah, that's right, Jennifer. The protest was set to start around 7:30. There were some people here before then, and between 7:30 and 9, I mean, we had people marching around the square. A little bit after 8 p.m., police also blocked off the road around the square so that they could march on the street. Where the patrol cars were damaged, that was on the north side of the square. We were not there for that. We did not see that, but Sergeant Gene Page did confirm that that did happen to 2 patrol cars. I asked him about the extent of the damage, and he said he couldn't comment because he hasn't seen the patrol cars himself. Now, as far as the tear gas goes, yes, there has been several rounds deployed. I do want to show you that it was an effort to disperse the crowd. The police are lined up at the bottom of the courthouse steps in riot gear. There are some sheriff deputies there as well, and then across the street. I mean, I'm gonna stop talking just so you can hear what's happening right now. It was pretty silent, but there are protesters across the street. Again, they're still holding up signs. It's just kind of been a roller coaster of a night at times. Things will seem pretty calm. You know, they'll chant things for George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, you know, why they're here today. And then we'll hear police kind of give that warning of it's time to disperse, and then that's when the tear gas will get deployed after they've warned. But right now we're just kind of watching. Again, it's a little hard to hear. We're on the other side of the street. That's for safety reasons. But we can see that there is still a large crowd here outside of the courthouse. Yes, I have talked to a few people that have come up to us too and just kind of letting us know what's going on from over there. And I mean, really what they're just trying to demonstrate is that it's a peaceful protest and they want it to be peaceful. Obviously, there's been some people that were here that showed up unintended or might not have been here when it started at 7:30. And they want people to know, like, we're not all like this. We're not all for this. There are some of us that are here to be peaceful and to send this message and to show solidarity with Minneapolis and Black Lives Matter. And I think that's what they're trying to get their message across. But I'm going to give you one last look, and then after that I'll send it back to you, Jennifer.
While to see how this situation unfolds. Our coverage will continue on our KNWA Fox 24 Facebook page. You can watch as the situation unfolds as the night continues. It is a very fluid situation. We haven't heard if police have said a curfew or if they have said a time frame of when they want to disperse that crowd. But as you saw, that crowd was pretty large there, and a lot of those people seem to not be wanting to move. Again, the tear gas has been deployed for quite some time. For about an hour now, we have seen law enforcement deploy some of that tear gas to try and move the crowd away. As Crystal mentioned, a lot of them are still holding signs. You know, they're chanting George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. The organizers reiterating that this was to demand justice for George Floyd, who, again, was a black man in Minneapolis who died while in police custody. And a lot of organizations here in the whole state of Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas planning some protests. We saw tonight's in Bentonville. Fayetteville had one over the weekend, as well as Fort Smith, and there is one planned for Fayetteville for tomorrow as well, and we will be covering that protest as well. Again, the situation in Bentonville is very fluid. Police in full riot gear, deploying tear gas to try and get the crowd to move. What it seemed like, according to Crystal, was about 100 to 200 people still there on site of the Bentonville Square, and she is pretty far away from where law enforcement is, so she can't really get a clear information on what is next in this situation, but we will keep you posted. Again, we are live streaming on our Facebook page. Here's a live look again of the Bentonville Square as people are still there. What started off as a peaceful protest around 7:30 has escalated now. Sergeant Gene Page with the Bentonville Police Department confirmed that 2 police vehicles have been damaged. He could not say the extent of the damage as he has not seen those vehicles. Tear gas, we saw it on camera, and our Crystal Martinez is there confirming that tear gas was deployed various times to try and keep the crowds away. All right, here's Crystal again. Crystal, how's it going? How are you feeling? What are you seeing?
Hey, Hey Jennifer, yeah, we can see behind me here again. There's just people all around, but they still have signs up. I'm going to step off a little bit just so you can kind of see again a still heavy presence here outside of the courthouse. Without this music playing, though, and I'm trying to talk over it because there is profanity in this music, so you might hear some over the TV right now. But other than this music playing, I mean, crowd has kind of grown a little silent here. And again, just more people out here with signs up. There were rounds of tear gas deployed throughout the night. We heard it ourselves when some police were coming by just saying, hey, here's a warning, disperse. We did hear that. Again, Sergeant Jean Page confirmed that there was some damage done to patrol cars that happened on the north side of the square. This started around 7:30. Some people were here before then, but we just saw a lot of people, hundreds of people walking around the square. Then it kind of led to the street, and Benville police actually blocked off the street so that they could march around the square. And then it was around after a little bit 9 o'clock. I'll tell you this, it was around after 9 o'clock, and we noticed that there was someone that looked like they might not have been here originally for the protest, and they kind of started arguing with the crowd, and they were kind of going back and forth. Well, the crowd and that one person that I saw myself moved towards the end of the courthouse steps, and once they got to the end of the courthouse steps, that's when police in riot gear came out, and then they lined the bottom of the court steps. So that's where you can kind of see them now, all lined up. That's what you're seeing. I mean, still, I would say at least 100 people here outside the Benton County Courthouse. You have police on one side, on the bottom of the courthouse steps in riot gear. I, again, can't tell you what's being said, but I can tell you that I see the crowds a little bit closer. At times they would go back to the other side of the street. Now it seems like they're a little bit closer to the police. All right, I'm going to take it now to Chad Mira, who's also out here. Chad.
Hey, Jennifer, we are here just off the square in Bentonville. The crowd's still chanting, still a lot of people out here protesting what started out as an event in memory of George Floyd. You can hear the chants right now. Things at this moment relatively calm, but there have been moments where things have intensified as well. Police in riot gear having to come out of the building here and fire tear gas to try and get the crowd to disperse and settle down a little bit. On the other side of the street, there are more people setting up too, just keeping an eye on things. But what you're looking at right now is the large majority of protesters who have come out here tonight, a lot with signs, some have flags. Some people shouting profanity at the police, driving by, honking their horns, yelling out of their cars as well. This is about as close as we can get, according to the police. They warned us not to get much closer than this because once we get up there, they might end up having to use tear gas again, we're told. And so they recommend we don't get much closer than this. We are covering the square from multiple angles for you all so we can keep an eye on this protest and make sure that nothing else gets out of hand. And we'll be here to give you any warnings if you live in this area or in this area. Lauren has talked with the police out here. They said this turned what they considered unlawful after people in the crowd started throwing stuff at officers. So as you can tell, there have been some tense moments for sure out here, but at this moment, things are relatively calm. Jennifer, back to you.
All right, Chad, thank you so much for that coverage. Please stay safe out there. And of course, this is a very fluid situation, and the city and police asking you to stay away from the area. As you saw, they are trying to get that large crowd dispersed. As Chad said, they are calling this now an unlawful moment, and they have deployed tear gas plenty of times tonight to try and get that crowd to move away from the square. Now, this all started, it was planned as a peaceful protest for 7:30 tonight, and Crystal described every hour it just started escalating a little bit more. Organizers gave people warning saying if you plan on being violent or you are wanting to escalate the situation, do not come, do not show up. We want this to be a peaceful protest. And it started like that. We saw many people. We had reporters there live at 5 and 6. And what they showed us was people marching peacefully, chanting George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, but they were going around the square in a peaceful manner, and things started escalating as the night went on. Police now in full riot gear. They are standing right in front of the courthouse, and in front of them is a large crowd not budging, staying there, standing their ground, and holding up their signs in memory of George Floyd and speaking out against police brutality. And again, of course, this is one of dozens and dozens of protests across the country that are demanding justice for George Floyd, the black man who died while in police custody. That was about a week ago in Minneapolis. We know that there is another protest planned for Fayetteville. That's tomorrow around 7 p.m. and we will have full coverage of that as well. And police have said that they support peaceful protests. In fact, there was one today in Fayetteville, right in front of at the Fayetteville Police Department, where people and some officers knelt. They were kneeling in memory and in honor of George Floyd. That was a peaceful protest. We will see how tomorrow shakes out for the city of Fayetteville and the protest that is planned there tomorrow. Right here, right now, it seems like the situation in Bentonville, it seems pretty quiet. As Chad was saying, it goes from it being quiet to it ramping up a little bit more, and then you see the tension between police and the protesters. We have seen water bottles being thrown at police. The city of Bentonville Facebook page posted about 30 minutes ago that some were actually throwing rocks at police, and rounds of gas have been deployed to counter that. They have also reported that some protesters have gas masks and assault rifles, and we reported on a group that had assault rifles at the beginning of the protest, and they still have them. Okay, we are going to toss back out to our Crystal Martinez, who is there at the center of it all. She's been there all afternoon. Crystal, what's going on now? Has the situation changed at all?
Yeah, hey Jennifer, it has changed. We've been told that it's considered an unlawful gathering, and I'm talking back and forth with Gene Page on exactly, what will that mean for protesters if we need to give a warning out here that they need to leave. But we're looking back here and there are still protesters out with their signs up, and we've seen the same people here that haven't left. I talked to a few people here too, and they told me that they're trying to stay because they want to keep their message and they want to stay united and stand united and not back down. And that's what they tell me. So now how all of this kind of, I guess, unfolded from what we witnessed, that there was someone here that showed up, and obviously they didn't seem that they were a part of this protest when it started around 7:30. They kind of just showed up and caused a little bit of the crowd to rifled up some. The situation moved to the end of the court steps, and then that's when police came out in riot gear. Now, it looks like people are moving, which I'm assuming the police have just given a warning that they're about to deploy maybe more tear gas. I'm not quite sure. Okay, something was thrown. It looks like something was thrown. I can't quite tell what that was, but it was into where the police are. Okay, we hear something. We hear something. Something just popped. It might. Okay, the crowd's moving. It's tear gas. It's tear gas. Everything's being, they're throwing it back. Someone just threw back. Okay, I'm moving out of the way. I'm sorry for the profanity. There's unfortunately something that we can really do about that right now. Okay, there seems to be a lot of protesters still lined up outside on the side here. It was just dispersed by tear gas. We saw the crowd start to disperse a little bit before that was deployed, which I'm assuming means that the police did give a warning. That's what they've been doing. I also heard them give a warning earlier before they deployed it. I can't tell you how many rounds have been deployed here so far. I mean, we've seen a couple. Okay, we're hearing some more. Okay, they're moving down. The police are moving down from the courthouse steps. The police are moving down from the courthouse steps. There is someone's throwing something back. They're throwing a water bottle back at police. Police are moving off. They've been at the courthouse steps this entire time. This is the first time that they have moved away from the courthouse steps. It just seems like they're trying to push the crowd back. They're not. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Do you mind? It's okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. I appreciate y'all. Okay, so what it seems like is they're... I apologize. It looks like they're trying to move the crowd back more, and so they're moving off the steps. Now they are on the sidewalk right in front of the courthouse. I have seen water bottles being thrown back at police. Okay, we're hearing more stuff. Hold on. Still keep it. Okay, there's water bottles being thrown back. Oh my God, he's throwing a firecracker. Someone just threw a firecracker. That came right here from the side. That came right here from the side of us. They're throwing firecrackers, and it just got. It looks like one of the firecrackers maybe caught onto a poster. Okay, that firecracker did come from the side, which means it did come from the crowd. Keeping an eye on it now. The crowd's dispersed. Oh, something else is being thrown right behind you! It's coming from the side of us, from behind us, back here. There it goes. There's... Oh, it's firecrackers.
Grab the backpack.
Okay, we're going to scoot back some for our safety. There's more firecrackers being thrown in the middle. Onto the lawn now. More being thrown. I can't see who's throwing the firecrackers, but it's coming right here from the... Oh, there it goes.
Stay with me. They're looking right at us.
Okay, it looks like they're deploying
I don't know.
tear gas.
I can't see everything. Deputy Sheriff.
So we've just seen firecrackers coming from the crowd. In response, the police throw... Sorry, I'm watching right now. It looks like they're moving forward. Okay, police are moving forward. They are now moving off of the sidewalk into the street. They are now moving into the Bentonville Square. They're turning over here on our side. Okay, he's got... Okay, we're moving back. He's pointing it over here towards us. We're scooting back. There's still moving back. All right, the police are now in the square. They've occupied the square. There are some on the side of the courthouse that are facing us, and that's why we are moving back. You can see the tear gas. Okay, sorry for, again, the profanity. Okay, oh, something just... They just got, oh my God, they just got the motorcycle. They have it pointed at him. They have people pulling him back.
He's trying to leave! Right? Divide and conquer! Like a bunch of pussies!
Again, sorry for the profanity. There's just not much. We can't control that right now. Okay, so looking at it, the deputies are now on. They've lined up on the side of the square. This is A Street in Central. That's the intersection we're at. So they have lined up. They've now made half of the square. They pretty much have expanded out of the courthouse steps. Sergeant Jean Page did tell me that they were giving people time to leave, and no one was leaving, and so now this is the result. Again, we saw firecrackers being launched. Okay, they're still lined up here, just moving past the courthouse steps, trying to disperse the crowd and get people to go. We're on the other side. We're just trying to follow orders as well and stay safe. This is outside of the Benton County Courthouse. again, I'm sorry, but there might be some more chanting.
You got a shot, John? Yeah.
All right, so we've moved from the courthouse steps. Now they're kind of between this is on the intersection of A and Central. And so they have now lined up. And Sergeant Jean Page did tell me that they were giving time, letting protesters know, okay, something was, that they were letting the crowd know it was time to go. We did confirm that it was now considered an unlawful gathering. That is from Bentonville Police. We have been out here all afternoon, and I can tell you guys it did start peaceful, that there were over 100 people, more than 100 people here going around the square with signs up. Okay, I'm seeing some police with riot gear. Okay, I'll send it back to you now.
Scoop that. All right, Sergeant Shannon Jenkins from the Benton County Sheriff's Office. We have her on the phone now to talk to us about this escalating situation on the Bentonville Square. Sergeant Jenkins, thank you so much for joining us right now.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and we know that service can be a little spotty, so everyone please bear with us. We are seeing the situation escalate. We have the understanding that this is now an unlawful gathering. What is your message to the people there in Bentonville?
You know, right now we're trying to de-escalate the situation. You know, this gathering that was once, you know, peaceful and beautiful today, you know, we want to de-escalate that. So what we're asking people right now is to actually leave the square area and just go home.
Why is it so important for them to heed that warning? Go home.
You know, our main objective down here is to keep this area safe, keep the public safe, keep the, you know, the citizens, keep the property safe, you know, while they're down here doing and voicing and with the public what their concerns are.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing firecrackers being thrown, fireworks, and tear gas being deployed. And now we're seeing the sheriff's deputies and other law enforcement officers walk down from the steps, form what seems to be a barricade around the square. Is there a tactic that they're using? Is there a plan in place that you guys are using in order to fully de-escalate the situation and get the crowds out of that area?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, first of all, we applaud our citizens for wanting to use their First Amendment rights, you know, for this gathering, for their voices to be heard, but we want to keep them safe. And when it starts to become violent and a danger to the public, safety, again, our number one priority is to keep the public safe.
Mm-hmm. And are you all prepared to make arrests? Have you thought about maybe setting a curfew?
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is not to arrest people, right? But when laws are starting to become broken, you know, we as law enforcement officers have to make that safety and the security of the public and the people here our number one priority.
Yeah, no, it's so we watched it escalate very quickly. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Lieutenant Jenkins, about this situation and moving forward from here, from tonight?
You know, we love our community, and we want to make sure that we're driving that home, that we love our community as a whole. And so, you know, just know that, remember that.
Okay, Lieutenant Shannon Jenkins with the Benton County Sheriff's Office on the phone with us right now as an unlawful gathering, as she and other law enforcement are calling it, continues there on the Bentonville Square. It started out, it was planned as a peaceful protest earlier this evening. It began around 7:30, and by 9 o'clock we started getting reports of the situation escalating there, with tear gas being deployed after a couple of police vehicles were damaged. The extent of that damage we do not know. Sergeant Jean Page with the Bentonville Police Department has not seen those vehicles and cannot confirm what the damage was, but he says that two of them were more damaged. The crowd started to get a little unruly, and that's when the tear gas was starting to get deployed. Now, apart from our Crystal Martinez, our Chad Mira is also there. We have team coverage, try to get a good picture from all angles of what's happening there. Chad, what can you tell us?
Jennifer, things have really started to intensify out here just a few minutes ago. If you look over this way, Lauren, you see the police in the riot gear. They have moved their line forward. They have cleared the square from the protesters. The protesters forced back across the street with the use of tear gas. While they were doing that, people were throwing glass and fireworks back toward the police officers. The crowd has largely left the area, but you can still hear a lot of noise in the area. Police have been driving around using their bullhorns, saying this is no longer a lawful protest. If people remain in the area, they will be arrested. There's been a lot of animosity back and forth just these past few minutes as the police have moved to push the protesters away from the square and try to get them to leave the area. Now, the police here, some of them do have weapons drawn. We can't tell what they are. We believe they are some sort of non-lethal weapon, maybe used to fire the tear gas. They have fired some as far away as over into this field across the street here to get the protesters to farther move out. And as you can see now, a little bit of haze left in the sky from that tear gas, but the people have largely left the area. So things are really starting to die down, but the police still holding their line on the square here to make sure that this crowd does disperse. Jennifer.
All right, Chad, thank you so much. Please be careful out there. We've seen fireworks being thrown out from the crowd, the tear gas, so please, please be careful. Thank you so much for your coverage as well. Both Chad Mira and our Crystal Martinez have been there on the square in Bentonville on opposite sides, trying to get a pretty clear picture. Here we are live. You see sheriff deputies there lined up in front of the courthouse. They have their weapons out. Some of them are wearing gas masks. Again, law enforcement has deployed tear gas a few times. We can't tell you exactly how many times, but beginning around 9 p.m., that's when things started to escalate. Tensions started growing, and that's when the tear gas started being deployed. They are warning the crowd when they are about to deploy that tear gas, giving them time to move away. Some people are starting to leave, as Chad mentioned, but still a pretty large crowd there. We spoke to, if you missed it just about 5-10 minutes ago, we spoke with Lieutenant Shannon Jenkins from the Benton County Sheriff's Office. She is a public communications director there, and she wanted us to relay the message to everyone there to go home, because this, what started out as a peaceful protest, is now an unlawful gathering, in her words, and they're prepared to do what it takes in order to get the people away and keep them safe, both those who are there protesting and the police and law enforcement. You know, their top priority, she said, is to make sure that everyone is safe, that buildings are protected. We've seen all across the nation protests escalating to riots and chaos and destruction, buildings being burned, and that is something that we do not want to see here. We do not want to see that happen. And so her message to everyone is go home. And if you have a loved one there, if you have someone there, they're asking you to contact them and say, it's time to go home. Okay, we have Sergeant Gene Page with the Bentonville Police Department now on the line. Sergeant Page, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us tonight. What can you tell us about the situation now?
We're seeing things improve. If you saw, we had a little bit of a pause about 5 minutes ago, just giving demonstrators a little bit more time to leave on their own. Once we started having issues earlier, you saw we dispersed gas in various areas around the square to try to disperse. Many of the crowd came back in, so we gave a little bit more time. Now what you're seeing is actually the officers moving and closing down the streets and actually forcing most of the protesters to move away from the square.
And what is the next step here? You know, you are doing this, you're trying to move them out. What happens next?
Well, at this point, you'll actually see things kind of slow down, and you'll see the officers do a really slow movement of closing the streets down, giving people time to get their stuff, leave the area, continue. You'll see patrol units in the area on the loudspeakers giving more commands even further away from that smaller radius. So when you do have people that may not know and are actually trying to walk back into it, giving them a chance to go in and disperse from area, go back to their vehicles and clear out.
Can you paint the picture of how this all escalated? We spoke with our Crystal Martinez, who said that it appeared to start by someone who was not part of the initial protest and started to have some disagreements with some of those peaceful protesters. What can you speak on that behalf and what happened there that escalated the situation?
For the most part, the protest as a whole was peaceful until we got close to about 9 p.m., and that's when we started seeing different elements come in. We did witness some internal fighting within some of the demonstrators. That kind of spilled over. We had a few patrol cars get damaged, and then people were refusing to depart from that side of it. And that's when we started escalating, and that's when you saw the gas and things being used.
Mm-hmm. And it does seem, we're watching a live picture right now, it does seem like the crowd is moving away. I'm not seeing a lot of people there anymore. I'm seeing still a pretty strong police presence, of course, but when it comes to those demonstrators, it seems like they're thinning out. Is that accurate?
It is, and what we'll do is we'll give them a little bit more time. You probably won't see the use of gas again once we start moving through there and start moving the crowds out. It should slowly start developing into a more safe environment. Once we get everyone out, then we can open the streets back up.
Yeah, it's a very fluid situation. Of course, you can't put a time frame on it, but how longer do you think that this will last here?
We're going to start moving officers through the square and then going out from there to make sure that we don't have people lingering around the businesses. We don't want damage or anyone left over after that. So we're prepared to stay all night if that's what we have to do. But we want to make sure that we're moving, slow, giving people plenty of time to get their belongings and to leave the area.
Yeah, and I assume that that your presence will be there for today and possibly tomorrow and for as long as it takes in order to make sure, like you said, everyone and everything remains safe and we don't see the destruction that we've seen across the nation because of these protests.
Exactly. And you saw that working early on both sides with the demonstrators and police working together. It turned differently. Like I said, around 9 p.m. is when things started to change. But as the most part, we did receive a lot of support and just coming together with some of our citizens and even other people that came in from other areas. So
yeah, and we know that
really
one action, one person can change the course of how this goes. But we don't want to also forget the message and the meaning behind the peaceful protest, right? Which is what you mentioned, the unity and working together, the public and the police to make some change and to call for justice. And that's the purpose for these. It's not to set buildings on fire or cause any more animosity between groups, but it really is to try to start a conversation, speak up and move together forward into a positive direction.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is that we've got very minimal damage. Of course, once we get everyone cleared out, we'll move through and just see what we have. But right now, we had a few damaged patrol cars, not a lot of damage that we've seen to local businesses. So that's very positive. We're happy about that. But once we get everything cleaned out, get everyone moved along, we'll be able to get a better assessment. But it looks really good.
All right, Sergeant Gene Page, thank you once again so much. We appreciate you joining us and filling us in and giving us more of a perspective as to what is happening there as the situation is, again, very fluid. It keeps changing. You've seen it slow down and ramp back up. So we appreciate you, Sergeant.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
All right, again, that was Sergeant Gene Page with the Bentonville Police Department filling us in on what they are doing on the square now. And law enforcement, both officers and deputies are trying to move to spread out around the, sorry, I'm watching the TV where I'm seeing all the action that's happening right now. Our Crystal Martinez is getting ready to give us a live report, but police are moving and making their way through the square to make sure that everyone is out of that area, and they will remain there. All right, our Crystal Martinez has another report for us, and as we heard Crystal, Sergeant Jean Page says that it's slowing down, people are leaving, and police are now starting to make their way through the square to clear things. Is that what you're seeing? What's going on?
Yeah, Jennifer, you're exactly right. I mean, an hour ago, not the situation we're seeing right now. I'm going to step off so I can show you. Just take that in for a minute. It's pretty quiet. It's been a while since we've heard it to be this quiet. There are still about a little more than a dozen people lined up on the sidewalk here, not really doing anything. They're just standing there. We do see some police officers kind of talking to them. Now, again, the police and some sheriff deputies have kind of stayed close to the court steps. They did start moving off. You all did see that here on our coverage when they did, and that's when it became an unlawful gathering. And at that point, they did have to deploy more tear gas to disperse the crowd and get everyone home. There's some police walking out now from the side of the square. It looks like they're just kind of scoping everything out and just trying to get people to go home safely right now. So again, you can see that they're kind of telling them it's time to back off. There was a Bentonville police car that drove around, and they did say, you know, this is, you can listen.
Square now, or you'll be arrested.
Okay, so they are threatening arrest now. They're saying if you do not leave the square, you will be arrested. That just came out of the Bentonville police car, and we just heard that. So there's not that many people here at all compared to what we saw. I mean, even 15 minutes ago. But as you can see, the police are still moving some people out.
Just don't tell them you're protesting. I got a sign, bro. I gotta hide this.
Okay, they're moving on to the sidewalk. So again, they're just kind of getting people to move off and move away. I know we are pretty far back, and that is obviously for safety reasons. But this all, we've been covering this protest. I mean, you had Jesse go live in the earlies, like you mentioned, kind of talking about preparing for the protests. And when we got here at 7:30, it was peaceful. There were people just marching around. Around 8 o'clock is when police opened up the street for them to march across to. We did hear reports of patrol cars being damaged. We also did see that some of the protesters kind of went off of the square and were going through some streets, but they came back. And then we had that disruption with someone that came in the crowd that just seemed to rifled up.
That's lit. Bro, I live right there.
So, and then of course that brought them to the end of the court steps, and then that's when police came out. And kind of since then, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest with you, of emotions. There's been times where people were kneeling in complete silence, just trying to say that, you know, we're here trying to be peaceful. And then there were at times where we did see firecrackers being thrown towards the police and water bottles being thrown towards the police. And then in return, we saw, you know, tear gas being deployed. It just kind of went back and forth there for, I would say, at least an hour. But now it is considered an unlawful gathering. And because of that, Benville police say if you do not leave the square, you will be arrested. Again, it's considered an unlawful gathering. Most people have left. There's just a couple that are still here. But again, we're not seeing an exchange of anything, nothing being thrown on neither side. As you saw earlier, that was just a different story. And I mean, Jennifer, you talked about this earlier, and I'm glad you did. We just didn't start this way. You know, it did start by sending a message and standing in solidarity with what's happening with Black Lives Matter, protesting police brutality, and, you know, doing so in the name of George Floyd. And within just a matter of minutes, things did escalate. But at the same time, while we're talking about the bad, I mean, there were some good. I saw people that were handing out water to protesters. I saw some that were trying to talk to the police and just let them know, hey, we're just trying to be here peacefully. But it just seemed like things would escalate at one point and they would kind of tense down. But I've been in contact with Sergeant Jean Page all night, and he's told me, you know, we've been sending out verbal warnings to the people to let them know it's time to leave, it's time to leave. He would keep telling me, you know, we're giving them just an hour, we're giving them just a little bit more. And then, like, as we saw earlier, the police left the courthouse steps, moved out into the square, and now they have the square pretty much surrounded. Not too many people here at all. Again, a different story than when we last checked in with you all. And this is for the
go through their speaker telling people that they need to move away or arrests will be made. And again, they're reiterating this is the safety for everyone there, both the protesters, the demonstrators, and police. And speaking to Sergeant Gene Page with the Bentonville Police Department, his message also was, you know, we've been giving them plenty of time. The crowd needs to disperse. It started out as a peaceful protest, but things escalated, and right now police is moving to spread around the square. So they were very localized for quite some time, a couple hours, right in front of the courthouse by the steps. And that's where they were deploying the tear gas out into the crowd that was standing in front of them. Their tactic now to move the crowd, to help speed up the process of moving everyone out, they have slowly started walking down the steps, and now they're making their way around the perimeter of the square, and they're setting up there to try and clear out the crowd as far as possible from that area as they can. They are still holding their weapons, but like Crystal mentioned, the crowds have definitely thinned out. That is not the image that we saw. Not even 20-30 minutes ago, there was still a lot of people there. The crowd was still pretty large, and as we've seen the law enforcement agents move toward the perimeter of the square and keep moving toward the streets, and the crowd has definitely gotten very, very small. Sergeant Gene Page said that the 2 police cars were damaged. No damages to businesses has been reported thus far, but of course it is dark and the situation has been very tense. But tomorrow, come daylight, we're going to see exactly what happened there and the aftermath of this demonstration. You know, what started out as a peaceful protest demanding justice and calling out police brutality in the aftermath of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis while in police custody, that quickly changed into something else. It is no longer peaceful. Law enforcement calling it, of course, unlawful gathering. There has been, again, no looting reported there on the Bentonville Square, and no businesses reported any damage. We did get word from Keith Foster with Rogers Police, and he said that that department has over 30 officers at Pinnacle Promenade Mall right now. There have been online threats of looting, but nothing is happening right now. Again, this is at the Pinnacle Promenade Mall, and Rogers PD has over 30 officers there monitoring the situation. There have been online threats of looting, but nothing happening at this time. But he says they are prepared. Again, this is Rogers PD. They're being proactive in the situation and monitoring what's happening and prepared to take action if that were to happen in Rogers or in Bentonville. Again, law enforcement presence at Pinnacle Promenade Mall just to make sure that looting or any damage to businesses does not happen there in that area. We've seen the chaos and the destruction all across the nation in both small and large cities where protests have gotten out of hand and things have happened and people have gotten injured or worse. And that's what police are trying to avoid here in our area. They support the peaceful protests, but their main mission is to keep the protesters, the demonstrators safe, and keep officers safe as well. You know, Lieutenant Shannon Jenkins with the Sheriff's Office kept saying, you know, this is our community. We love our community. You know, we stand in solidarity, but we have to watch out for each other. We have to be careful, and we have to be peaceful. And now this is an unlawful gathering. Sergeant Gene Page with Bentonville PD said that they will stay there for as long as they need to make sure that area is cleared. And you're continuing to see a live picture there of what's going on in downtown Bentonville on the square. All right, and the city of Bentonville has posted on their Facebook, this was about 22 minutes ago, we've been monitoring this. They say more tear gas has been deployed and people are still being asked to leave the square. This is no longer a lawful assembly. Despite previous reports, rubber bullets have not been fired. Again, rubber bullets have not been fired. This is according to the city of Bentonville's Facebook page. And tear gas we saw plenty of times was deployed. Rubber bullets, though, they say have not. All right, it seems like this situation is de-escalating now. We appreciate you staying with us for this coverage of this situation, what started out as a peaceful protest escalating into something that could have been pretty dangerous. Luckily, no one was injured, no one was arrested as of now, from what we know from talking to law enforcement officials. And we will continue coverage of this and future protests. There is one planned in Fayetteville. That's tomorrow. And for the latest coverage on all of this, please make sure you tune in to KNWA Today starting at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, thank you so much for trusting us and giving you this information, and we appreciate you. Please be safe out there and take care, everyone.